Howdy there, youngins. Silver Mongoose here. This is a response to Super Dan 88's Let's Discuss Nostalgia versus First Impressions in Retro Gaming. And I'm going to try to not just completely talk about nostalgia like other people do in some videos, but he really wanted to know three things I haven't written down here. Games that I liked when I was a kid, but I know they suck. Games I discovered recently, as I'm going to say, within the past 5 years or so. And if I've ever insulted anybody by saying, you know, the games that they liked when they were kids sucked. I find with NES games, or Nintendo Entertainment System games, a lot of stuff that I played as a kid, like, I know they don't suck. I played games like, you know, Excitebike and Double Dragon, a lot of games made by Nintendo, games that really are classics these days, and it's not disputable. Whether the games are really good or not. One game that I thought actually wasn't that great was Monster Party, but me and my girlfriend the other day, she said, hey, that game looks weird, let's play that. And we actually beat it. The first time we beat it playing it all the way through, and she thought it was pretty cool, so I guess that one doesn't suck. NES games that I got into more recently that are absolutely awesome, which were River City Ransom there, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!, even some games like Boulder Dash, which isn't the best game ever, but like it's still aged well, it's still fun. Kid Icarus. There are so many NES games that have just aged so well. It's funny that Super Dan 88 should mention people looking back and knowing their games are crap, because the other day we were playing Mission Impossible. This is my girlfriend's game, and she said, oh, that game is awesome, I can't wait. And we played it for about 15 minutes, and she said, this game's awful. And I was like, yep, it is. And it's just weird. And there are some other games as well, this is also my girlfriend's game. It's Chester Cheetah, Too Cool to Fool, and Mario is Missing. Those games she loved as a kid, and she knows that they're awful now. Probably the two exceptions to my collection that I admit that they're pretty bad is Magic Johnson's Fast Break, and a lot of people say Friday the 13th is pretty bad, so I guess it's gotta be. But there are also other games here. The Sega Genesis, I had some pretty bad games. This I loved as a kid. It's so boring, it's so awful. Mortal Kombat, not aged well. I know I'm going to annoy a lot of people when I say that, but I just prefer Street Fighter or anything that's more interesting. I think it was only really popular back then because of, you know, the violence in it. What was considered violent back then, but now, you know, there's so much more violent stuff. A lot of sports games, like NHL 96, I think is awesome. Some people might think 94 is awesome. It's just really what you played as a kid. I know sports games really don't age well for the most part. Let's see here, what else? Super Nintendo. I've gotten a lot of Super Nintendo games recently. I actually didn't get my Super Nintendo until after Nintendo 64, so I was already way behind. I just got this a couple years ago. R-Type is great. Super Mario Kart, F-Zero, all these games, I just got, you know, within the past few years, and they're all, you know, great. A lot of the games have really aged well. I just got a Master System last year as well, and I was playing Outrun, and Outrun is a really good game. It was advanced for its time, you know, that you could drive on different paths and stuff. A lot of racing games didn't have that. Super Dan 88 actually mentioned Streets of Rage and Golden Axe, and it's funny because these games are games I actually just picked up last year and I'd never played them before, and they're really good. I don't know how people could say they didn't age well. It's just ridiculous. It's just crazy. The one thing, I got a lot of Dreamcast games within the past year, and I have over 60 of them now, and I found that this game, stuff for the Dreamcast have really aged well. If you pick up, you know, Soul Calibur, or you pick up Crazy Taxi or Jet Grind Radio or something like that, it has aged really well. A lot of those games are still really fun. It's probably one of the consoles that I can find the most used games for that I really love. I can pick up any game and know, like, within 10-15 minutes that it's a great game. Which is probably, I see it maybe as like, because around the Dreamcast age is whenever kind of the graphics kind of peaked in a sense. Because, you know, it went from Atari to 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, and, you know, 64-bit. And then, as soon as it got to, you know, GameCube, PlayStation 2, Dreamcast, the graphics after that have kind of only slowly really gone up. There's no huge advancements, and if you compare the Xbox 360 to the Xbox, there's not a huge jump. If you compare the NES to the Super NES, there's a gigantic jump. So I think that that's why those games have aged probably a bit better. If I play Crazy Taxi, I don't look at it and think that it's really so far back, even though it kind of is. I just also more recently got a Sega Saturn, and this was one game what I got for Daytona USA, and I think that that's a great game. It kind of, the music in it kind of falls into the category of it's so bad that it's good. So that, I thought that game is pretty funny, it's pretty awesome. Games that I've probably insulted people about because I played and I didn't really like. Now, I'm gonna say something before I get tons of hate comments here. Banjo-Kazooie, Super Mario 64, and 007 GoldenEye. Now, I played 007 GoldenEye whenever I was really young, you know, going over to a friend's house and stuff, but I was always behind in games. So, whenever I picked this up a few years ago, I thought it's pretty awful, and I do have a good reason. It's because I have Perfect Dark, and Perfect Dark is kind of like, it's kind of, you know, like at heart, it's kind of the sequel to GoldenEye, and in a lot of ways, it's a lot better. I don't have a lot of fond memories of GoldenEye, other than it was one of the first shooters. So I think that GoldenEye really has not aged well. If you compare it to something like Perfect Dark, if you got Perfect Dark first and went back and played GoldenEye, then it wasn't that great. It's just, you know, Perfect Dark is things like you can actually have computers as enemies, and it just was so much more advanced. Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. Now, I really like these games. I think they're great games. I'm not gonna, you know, don't get that wrong there. What I'm gonna say about these things is I really don't have patience for them. These games are so hard. You might not think Banjo-Kazooie is hard, but you die and you have to go back to the beginning of the level and you lose everything you collected. And there's so many things to collect. And Super Mario 64, like, I don't even think I beat it. Like, I love these games. I will watch, you know, my girlfriend or somebody else play them. I think they're fantastic, but I just can't stand to play them myself. I just also recently, in the past year, I got a lot of consoles in the past year, got a Sega CD, and this is one of the games which I think a lot of people do like, and I think has not aged well. Lunar, the Silver Star, is just, I find it fairly boring compared to games these days. If anybody's played it recently and hasn't played as a kid, you'll know what I'm talking about. I can see how it was great then, but if you look back at it now, not so much. You know, if you compare it to things like Golden Axe, you play it then, you play it now, it's still awesome. Now, I know a lot of people are going to get at me for this one. Resident Evil. I find a lot of the PlayStation stuff just hasn't aged very well. I do think the remake for GameCube is a great game, however, but that one, not so much. So, that's really all I have to say about that. They're kind of running out of time here, so that's really just my response. I think that a lot of stuff, whenever you're playing old games, you're talking to people old games, you do have to take nostalgia into perspective. You really have to sit back and say, is this really a good game? Is it? And then, you know, and then just really, you know, view it from there. So, yeah, I'm out of time, so that's all I'm going to say. I hope this chain of videos continues, because I think it's a pretty interesting discussion. So, that's all for now. So, this has been Silver Mongoose, and remember, classic gaming never gets old.